Total Sport.
When we won that war, I tell you what, I think a lot of fans didn't know how to react. Well, they say it's a game of two horse. It's been a season of two horse for us.
Did a phenomenal turnaround. Eddie Howe's done a phenomenal job.
What a weekend, Marco!
BBC Radio Newcastle.
What a weekend, not so much, really. So the wait goes on. No Wembley success on the pitch for Newcastle United. An extraordinary occasion off it, though surely it can't be 24 years before another one.
Well, we went with great expectations, but once again there was Wembley heartache after the defeat to Manchester United. Did we deserve better? Was the performance what you were hoping for? Or were we just beaten by a streetwise side? Let us know how your reaction to the whole day.
Yeah, a frustrating 90 minutes for the lads as well, as another determined and organised team caused us problems. And with a lack of pace and power, it proved too tough a task. So how can Tony Mowbray get us back on track? Is it time for Bennett to be unleashed? Call us tonight on 0800 234 6565.
They retired ages ago. We will look on... Jevison. We will look back on the League Cup final disappointment, of course, and the Coventry Building Society Arena disappointment. Newcastle's Falcons, Thunder and Eagles all lost this weekend as well. So unless you're a Blythe Spartans, South Shields, Morpeth Town, North Shields or Berwick Rangers fan, it wasn't a great couple of days, which makes our performance of the weekend list of nominations a little bit thinner on the ground too. That will be at the very end of the show, before which we will hear from Eddie Howe, Tony Mowbray and the man who is still the last Newcastle captain to lift a cup, Bob Moncur. But it's your voices we really want to hear tonight, whether you were at Wembley, the CBS Arena, neither or both, which I guess is the least likely of all four. Give us a bell.
Total Sport.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
I'd love to hear from anybody who was at both grounds this weekend, but I suspect there is not a single individual who can lay claim to that particular accolade. Welcome to Total Sport on this Monday evening. We were hoping it would be a much more celebratory one, but as it is, we've got plenty of action to look back on across the weekend, even if the results didn't go the way that we were all hoping for. We will do our introductions first of all. Former Newcastle United fullback John Anderson is back safe and sound from Wembley. Across the desk from me, good evening, Ando.
Hey, Colin.
You did make a relatively quick escape.
I did.
Out of Wembley, didn't you, in the end?
I did.
Yeah?
I got back last night.
Yes, on one of the dry trains.
Yes. Yeah. And it was very peaceful. It was
yeah, I'm guessing
plenty of time for reflection.
Oh, good. This is going to be one of your strongest showings tonight then, is it?
I wouldn't bet on that.
Well, we'll see. You've also heard, of course, from the former Sunderland striker Marco Gabbiadini. Good evening, Marco.
Hi, guys.
And joining us in the studio is the current, as far as I'm aware, Sunderland commentator Nick Barnes.
Do you know something I don't?
I don't know.
Slightly worried
that was a genuine slip of the tongue when I used the word former. I'd used former for the first two. We are hoping to be joined by the Newcastle United commentator Matthew Razor. In fact, here he is. Welcome to Total Sport, Razor.
Few technical issues, but nice to be with you, Colin.
We got there in the end. You have also made it back safely from London.
Yes, no problems. Good. And lots of fans travelling back earlier today, but yeah, all good.
Wonderful. The number to call is always the same, 0800 234 6565 if you want to have a chat with Marco and Ando. We are here until 8 o'clock, of course we are. 0800 234 6565, the number to call. If you would rather send us a message, we'd rather hear from you, but if you're going to send us a message instead, then the numbers are as follows: 08000 321 333 for WhatsApp messages, 08000 321 333, or 81333 for text messages, 81333. Start them all with the letters BBC to make sure they come through to us. Put your name on the end of all of them as well, so we can give you the credit when we read them out. And if you are a Twitter user, if you're a twit, then you can find us at BBC Newcastle on Twitter, and we can read the messages out there as well. We always start the programme with reflections on each of our clubs respectively. Given that one of them played in a cup final, we are going to do Newcastle United tonight first. So we will have a proper chat with Razor and with Ando in just a moment, but let's look back on yesterday first of all then. The fans were there in their tens of thousands and brought the most extraordinary atmosphere to Trafalgar Square, to Wembley Way, and then of course to the stadium itself. The one thing that they could not control, though, was the result on the pitch.
And we're underway. BBC Radio Newcastle and Manchester United have kicked off. They've switched it from left to right to Anthony. Brought under control. Corner of the box. Now Dallo. Dangerous ball fired across and they get a block in. Newcastle, and then a clearance from Bruno down the line for Trippier. Good ball in and headed over. It's a goal kick onto Almiron. First time out to Trippier. Takes a touch. Through for Longstaff. Now the cutback. Great ball in. San Maxima on the left. Beats his man. Alan San Maxima. What a save by De Gea. And then Bruno over the top on the volley. Luke Shaw, left-footed delivery, headed into the net. The opening goal goes the way of Manchester United from Luke Shaw's cross, and a header from Casemiro from close range beats Loris Karius. It's Manchester United 1, Newcastle United 0. This for Manchester United is Wout Weghorst, edge of the area, danger here, Rashford.
How's
It's 2-0.
that gone in?
It's gone over Karius. It might have taken a touch, but Newcastle have got big problems now with 6 minutes to half-time. It's Manchester United 2, Newcastle United 0. Back towards Byrne, tackled by Anthony, then a bit of skill down the line, and Weghorst played in. Right side, Rashford making the run. Weghorst, edge of the area, has gone for it, and Karius with a diving save, one-handed to tip it over the top. Moved on to Bruno. Trippier on the outside gets it from Almiron. Trippier's teasing ball in. Behind it goes. They appeal for corner. Goal kick is the decision. Trippier again through the middle. Byrne there. De Gea with a punch. Joelinton, edge of the area. Now a chance to hit. It's blocked. Wilson in the area. Joelinton again blocked by Martinez in front of goal. Corner on the left. Back inside to Joelinton. Had that shot blocked a few minutes ago. Bruno through. Trippier's in. Now the pull across. Oh, and De Gea with a stop. It just wouldn't reach Wilson, and then Trippier's offside from the ball back over. Rashford, edge of the area. Karius gets down and beats the ball away. He's made a couple of impressive saves, Loris Karius. Murphy's going to have a goal!
Goalkeeper was done.
Jacob Murphy from distance, from 30 yards. That has arrowed wide of De Gea's left-hand post. Newcastle fans defiantly with their black and white flags. As Richie's ball in, and a header from Joelinton saved, and then they can't keep it alive through Anderson. It's that familiar feeling, the pain of defeat. Wembley may change, the Twin Towers to the Arch, but it's the same outcome for Newcastle United. Another cup final that doesn't go their way. It's been some run, some ride in this competition this season. It's been a day of pride and of joy and brilliant build-up. But Manchester United are going to be the ones lifting the trophy.
I think we've had a group of players this year that have given everything in every game. I'm very proud to be their manager because of that effort and commitment that they've given the club. I think they've represented the fans really well again today, who were magnificent for us, and just so disappointing for them really that we weren't able to reward their incredible support with what they wanted.
And we will come back to that support, not just in a couple of minutes, but throughout the course of the show and throughout the course of the week, I suspect, as well. But, I mean, on the game itself, first of all, Ando and Razor, in just a minute, it's another Wembley defeat. It's has just been pointed out, it's 3 2-0 defeats in a row now in finals. And once Manchester United scored certainly their second goal, Newcastle were just never really in it. Manchester United managed the game.
Yeah. We said before kick-off it was hugely important that we scored first. Because of the way things that had been going in recent weeks, we hadn't been scoring goals. And you always felt it was hugely important for us to score first. If they scored first, could you see us scoring 2 goals? Probably not. And then when the second one went in, it was, it was always going to be uphill. But it was disappointing. I think Manchester United, did to us what we've been doing to sides for most of the season. Yeah, they got the tactics right. They got 2 banks of 4, and they basically said, "Come and play through us and try and break us down if you can." And they were quite happy to let us do that, and then hit us on the break. And every time they broke with pace and they broke with numbers. So from a tactical point of view, you would say that they probably got it spot on. And as I say, when they scored first, it was then up to us to throw bodies forward to try and get back into the game, which opened more space, gave them more room to play in. But it was, look, gave it our best shot. Just that we haven't got somebody at this moment in time who can put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, Razor, I mean, we heard in that little highlights package there were chances. Steve Howe had a right good go at a Ben O'Howell when Jacob Murphy's shot
that was unbelievable.
Away. I mean,
did you see the movement?
It started.
It
It
was
was centre of
incredible
the goal
strike.
and ended up a yard wide. It was an extraordinary bendy
De
goal.
Gea is waiting for it, and it just moves. It must have moved 4 or 5 yards.
Yeah. 61% possession and more shots on goal than Manchester United, Razor, but chances simply not taken.
Well, Eddie Howe we'll hear in a moment, Colin, was pretty happy with what Newcastle did in midfield and everything outside of the 2 penalty boxes. I think there were clearly some good parts to their performance yesterday. They made a pretty decent start to the game. The first 10 minutes was quite lively, was quite intense, and then it settled down a bit. We'll talk maybe in a bit of detail about the opportunities that they had shortly, but at 0-0, the effort we heard there from Alan Saint-Maximin where De Gea made a save, I think possibly with his elbow, was really key, because within 2 minutes Manchester United were in front, and then Newcastle's other opportunity in the first half, the big one, was Dan Burns' header wide, and that would have got them back into it. And if there'd been another goal at 2-0, it really had to go Newcastle's way. Ando's right, they needed to score first, but at 2-0 they needed to get something back as soon as possible, and unfortunately they just couldn't do it. And I think there'll be a sense of regret and about a feeling of a missed opportunity. It always is when you don't win a big match or a big cup tie. Manchester United may not be the best team in the Premier League this season. They're in terrific form. Newcastle are a pretty good team as well, despite their recent issues and lack of goals, as Ando's pointed out, and the performances not being at the level that they were. The gap is not maybe as big as it was in 98 and in 99 when they played title winners, double winners, treble winners at Wembley. So in that sense, yeah, maybe it is an opportunity missed for them. But let's hear a bit from Eddie Howe now on the game itself. This was his assessment of the match.
We gave everything to the game. There's no lack of effort or commitment from the group, but we just didn't get those breaks. Both ends. I thought the free kick was probably a harsh one to give away. Should have defended it better. Second goal was a killer for us quite soon after, but then we do everything we can to try and get back in the game. We have to survive some dangerous moments on transitions, but the players gave everything. We had the chances, I felt, but we didn't take them, and ultimately that's why we lose.
Yeah, and what Eddie Howe says there is more or less a reflection of what we've just covered in the first sort of 10 minutes or so. We'll come on to a couple of different individuals in a moment, but Eddie Howe did try to... Well, he didn't just try to change things at half-time, he did change things at half-time, and there was a change in formation, and at times in the second half, and I remember you and Steve Howie in commentary not really being sure what the system was.
No, players were playing all over. I mean, there was more than one occasion where Almiron and St Maximin were both on the left side. Wilson played up top. Isaac came on at half time, and he did okay. He went and played in that hole, and he picked up some good positions where ball gets fed into him and he gets himself on the half turn, and all of a sudden he's facing the opposition, which is probably where he wants to play. He doesn't want to play with his back to goal. I don't think he's got the physical presence to play up there on his own. But look, we just didn't have enough guile and enough quality in that final third of the pitch. Once again, you can't question the commitment and the desire. It was all there, but it's all about the quality. When you get the cup finals and big games, you need players with that quality who can make a difference. And unfortunately, on the day, we didn't have that.
Or at least those players who are there didn't make the difference that was required of them. Razor, I've sort of stolen your thunder slightly, because I know you spoke to Eddie Howe about his changes.
Yeah, it was something that I discussed with him after the match, Colin, because at half-time there was a substitution and Alexander Isak came on for Sean Longstaff, and that led to the change of formation and system. And then Joe Willock came back from injury and played later in the second half, as did Jacob Murphy. They were both introduced, and then in added on time there were two more changes. Matt Ritchie and Elliot Anderson both came on. So I asked Eddie Howe about his substitutions.
Yeah, I felt I did everything, or we did everything that we could tactically to try and get back into the match. It's difficult at 2-0 when you're playing the elite teams. You know, transitions we knew would be a problem for a second half, but I felt in the main we dealt with them really well. So yeah, it's always difficult to chase games, but I thought we did it as well as we could, probably bar the end part. Yeah, we changed tactically, we moved players around, we were continually just trying to find solutions to give Manchester United more problems. They would then make changes to try and combat us, so it was an interesting game tactically, and yeah, a very high level one.
We've talked about substitutions there, Andy. We haven't really talked about the starting 11 itself. I know there weren't necessarily too many decisions for Eddie Howe to make beforehand, and we know how consistent he likes to be with his team selections. One of the decisions he did have to make was whether Callum Wilson started ahead of Alexander Isak. He did. How did Callum Wilson do? I sort of know the answer to this, but how did you feel Callum Wilson did?
I don't think Callum Wilson's been the same player since he came back from the World Cup. He hasn't shown the same form. I mean, if you're perfectly honest, you'd have to say that it probably passed him by. You know, we spoke beforehand about cup finals. You don't want at the end of it to turn around and say, well, I don't remember a great deal about it, you know, because game passed us by, and that seemed to be the way with Wilson. Didn't have a great deal of service, you would say, but his performance overall wasn't at the level that we're accustomed to seeing from him, and it's been like that since he's come back from the World Cup. Now whether there's a problem or not, I don't know, but yeah, his levels have dipped. Yeah, and he'll probably admit that himself.
Yeah, so that substitution was, well, with Isak coming on was half-time. Wilson, more or less, give or take a couple of minutes, played the full 90 minutes. Razor, we've had one message in on Isak already, which is actually a question for Ando, but I'll put it to you, even though the question at the end is a little bit unfair to ask you, but you'll get the point that Joe is making. Says, does Ando think that Isak is a £60 million striker / goal scorer? He is skillful, but he looks lightweight, and I agree with the Spanish pundit on your show. That was just before Isak was signed, or just when Isak was signed, wasn't it? Who said he was overpriced. Surely we could have done better for that money. The question is not, I'm not going to ask you that second question really, but the first one about is he a striker / goal scorer? He's not exactly the same as Callum Wilson, is he? Even though people are going to equate the two.
Isak's a different type of player to Callum Wilson, and I think we have seen that he offers versatility because he's played up front through the middle, somewhere that Ando has made the point is perhaps not suited to him given his size and the attributes that he possesses. He's not the most physical player or physically imposing player, and yesterday he was just a bit deeper in a number 10 role, but there's also the option, I think, of playing him on the left hand side. Is he going to be a prolific goal scorer? Well, we're not sure yet. We haven't really seen that much of Alexander Isak because of the injury that he picked up on international duty in September. Yesterday was only his 12th appearance in a Newcastle shirt. Look, I thought he did well when he came on. I thought he was bright, he was positive, he tried to get them up the pitch. You can see that he's got good feet, and he moved the ball well, got away from players, and there might be an argument that he should have started, but Eddie Howe said that he was impressed by Callum Wilson against West Ham a couple of weeks ago, and that was really what swung it. Now, Wilson, before we hear from Eddie Howe on Isak, was ill after getting back from the World Cup over Christmas and New Year. I think it took him a little while to overcome that, and he's also had the hamstring trouble recently as well, so those could be factors in his recent performances, but he will be disappointed with a lack of goals in recent times, and probably the way that games have gone for him, because he has high standards and he has performed to a high standard for Newcastle generally over the last 2.5-3 years. But Alexander Isak came on, and Eddie Howe told us that he was impressed.
Yeah, I thought he was excellent, really, really good. Physically, technically and tactically, because it's a slightly different position for him. But again, I think once we get Alex right up to top speed, I think he's going to be a great player for us.
So that's the strikers, if you like, or that end of the pitch. Razor's just mentioned that was only Alexander Isak's 12th appearance for Newcastle United. It was, of course, Loris Karius' first, and who knows, possibly last appearance for Newcastle United. We don't quite know. I'm going to get your thoughts, both of you, Ando and Razor, in just a minute on his performance. Obviously conceded 2 goals, made some decent saves as well. Here first of all, though, is what Eddie Howe thought of his goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think Loris can be really pleased with his performance. I think conceded 2 goals, but yeah, that's the life of a goalkeeper. You can sometimes concede 2 goals and play really well. As you say, made a number of really good saves for us, as we knew he'd probably have to today, especially trailing 2-0 where we're leaving spaces behind us. Yeah, I thought he can be very proud.
For a man with a huge amount of pressure on him, Ando, he played all right.
Yeah, I thought he did okay. Not a great deal he could do about the first goal. It's real good header. Second one, I think, at the time, I thought he should have done better. But I think he's a little bit lucky or unlucky, I should say, because I think he's already committed before it comes off Botman's foot. I think he's already on his way down, and he just can't get a hand up. But I thought he made a couple of real smart saves. I think what he had to do, he did okay. Yes, there was always going to be doubts because of the length of time it is since he's played a competitive game. But I thought, on the whole, I thought he did well.
It's quite difficult to disagree with that. I think Razor handled the occasion very well.
Yes, and he is a goalkeeper that has been right at the top end with Liverpool, playing in the Champions League final, famously or infamously. But as plenty of pundits and observers have said over the last week or so, when we knew that Karius was going to play, you're not going to get to that level of the game if you aren't capable. And I think if he was feeling anxious or nervous, you wouldn't have known it from his performance or from his demeanour. The saves that he made were impressive and really important, and if Newcastle had been able to score, then he could have played a really significant part in them getting back into the match. But I think there'll be a lot of love for Loris Karius from the supporters for the way that he performed. They understand the difficulty of the situation, and it was good as well to see Nick Pope there yesterday, unable to play and obviously really disappointed, but supporting Karius and the rest of his teammates despite his suspension.
Yeah, thoughts on Loris Karius from all of you listening tonight, please. 0800 234 6565, the number to call. A few players picked up knocks. It sort of feels like a recurring theme in the last couple of games. Razor, what do we know in terms of how they are?
Well, Sean Longstaff went down and received treatment before the half-time whistle, and he was the player replaced at the break with Alexander Isak coming on. But Eddie Howe said afterwards that Longstaff is not injured. It was just a tactical switch, and they went with a more attacking player with Isak. So Longstaff is okay, and Bruno Guimaraes, well, he seemed to roll his ankle, didn't he? And again, needed treatment. Eddie Howe said that he thinks he's twisted it, similar to what happened against Fulham a few weeks ago when it looked like he'd picked up a bad injury but was okay. And Eddie Howe said that Newcastle don't think the issue with Bruno's ankle is serious at the moment, but they will have to look at it further and wait and see. To quote Eddie Howe, is what he said about the situation with Bruno. But it looks like a twisted ankle, maybe similar to what happened in the Fulham game, which fortunately didn't turn out to be a bad one.
Indeed, yes. Wait and see is all we can do. The last thing I want to ask the two of you for the moment is, we've talked a lot about the atmosphere inside the ground and the flag display and all that sort of thing from fans' perspectives. From your two perspectives, was it as special an occasion and an atmosphere as people were building it up to be?
Oh, it was amazing. We got down on the Saturday evening, and the only voices you heard walking around London were Geordie voices. It was, and the amount of people, we got to Wembley early yesterday as well, and walking down Wembley Way, the amount of people you spoke to who didn't have tickets. I think the majority of people we spoke to didn't have tickets. It was quite amazing, the amount of people who actually travelled who didn't have a ticket to get to see the game. But the atmosphere was unbelievable. If supporters won cups and won championships and won everything else, there'd be stadium wouldn't be big enough, because the reaction at the end as well, when we knew we'd lost the game, and the supporters' reaction was immense. It was brilliant, and they deserve an awful lot of credit. They were first class, and the way that they behaved as well, everything about it was just phenomenal.
Yeah, come on and give yourselves a fully
Absolutely.
deserved pat on the back tonight as well. But Razor, just from your perspective, obviously everything is tempered by how the game goes and the result, but your experience of commentating at Wembley and a final at Wembley for the first time?
Well, I think, like a lot of people, I'd wondered for a very long time since Wembley was redeveloped what it would look like with 32,000 Newcastle fans in there, and it was even more spectacular than I imagined. And our commentary position was on the Newcastle side, if you like, the west side of Wembley, so the supporters weren't too far away from us, and I thought the atmosphere was fantastic. We were a little further away from the Manchester United fans, but there was certainly, as far as I'm concerned, more noise coming from the set of supporters that were watching their team lose than the fans who were seeing their team win and lift the trophy at the end. They were a credit to themselves and to their club. The war flags displays with the black and white foil flags before the match, and then again towards the end with Newcastle 2-0 down, were spectacular, as we've come to expect, and they really added something to the occasion and the spectacle. It's just a shame that what we saw on the pitch wasn't quite at the level that we had in the stands with all those supporters, and many of whom, I think, Colin, Ando, because it has been so long since any trip to Wembley, since any game of this magnitude, we're just really grateful to be there, and probably in a bit of time we'll just reflect on all the good memories they have from the weekend, whether it's the journey down Trafalgar Square on Saturday night, which was very well behaved affair, and a lot of fans took bin bags and cleaned up after themselves as well, so not to leave it in a bit of a mess, which was nice to see, and they've been praised for that. And then their conduct on Wembley Way and in the ground was exemplary, so it was a really good day, I think, for the fan base and for their reputation, and I'm sure they'll be back.
Yes, here is hoping. Matthew Raisbeck, our Newcastle United commentator, thank you very much indeed. Raise will be back, of course, on tomorrow night's Total Sport. The number to call, whether you were at Wembley or not, 0800 234 6565. Actually, I do want to hear from people as well. Ando said there were loads of people, and we know there were, who went to London but didn't have a ticket. What did you do during the game? Where did you watch it from? Who were you watching with? Get in touch with us tonight. The number 0800 234 6565, and we will turn our attentions to Sunderland next.
Meet our family.
I'm not so sure about that.
There's Matt, the big brother of the family, and he knows how to romance the ladies.
The name's Matt Bailey, as in the drink, only smoother.
I'm surprised you're married.
Anna is the trendy sister that always looks cool.
I've got quite hairy eyebrows.
Right.
They're a bit uncontrolled.
Jilly is the cousin who always likes a gossip.
Loose lips sink ships, isn't it? So don't tell Jill, because she'll tell everybody.
And then there's Simon. Every family has one.
I would say people fantasise about Gary Bennett, I guess, don't they?
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So, this is us. We'd love to be part of your family.
So I'll have to make sure that I've got socks on that match.
Just ask your smart speaker to play BBC Radio Newcastle.
I see there's no place in that fictional family for you, Barnes.
No, we've established that at the top of the programme. This is probably my last show.
Oh, yes.
So let's make the most of it, shall we?
The effort, yeah, fair enough. Nick Barnes, our Sunderland commentator, and as far as we're aware, before anybody panics, I accidentally used the word former before when I introduced Barnes at the top of the programme, but it's all okay.
It'd all be kicking off Ken Bruce and Nick Barnes in the same week. That would never happen.
Goodness me.
Yes, well, Ken Bruce is clearly going somewhere for lots more money. I apparently are going nowhere.
I'm sure somebody would pay you to do a podcast here and there. 0800 234 6565 if you want to talk Sunderland or Newcastle United this evening, and we'll come to Barnsley and Marco in just a minute. But first of all, we can't really call them highlights, but let's hear the highlights at the very least from what, for only the second time this season, was a successive defeat for Sunderland.
As it's played in with the left foot of Roberts and headed towards the top corner off the bar from Bart. Ahmad Oh, he's giving the ball away
again
to Gyökeres. Gyökeres taking on Bart into the area and over the bar. And Ahmad, you're a very lucky man. Roberts to the byline, trying to get through, does so, drives it at someone at the edge of the 6-yard box, goes down, no penalty. It's waved away by Whitestone. And now there's another tangle on the far side. McNally on Clark. And they're bemused, Sunderland on Gelhardt, sorry, into the penalty area here and squared for Allen, who scores. Well, Sunderland will be rightly outraged at that. Jamie Allen has scored in the 25th minute. Gyökeres trying to get through again. He's still going in the penalty area. Pulls it low past the foot of the post. That was nearly number 2. Palmer through the middle now to Gyökeres at the edge of the area. Gyökeres on his right, trying to curl it in just round the post. Trying to get it inside to Roberts. Little back heel for Ahmad into the penalty area. Tries a shot, and Ben Wilson turns it round the post. Pritchard then from the left. Curls it low in, bounces in and over the bar. The header from Neil. Down on the right edge of the penalty. Oh, what a lovely play from Ahmad. And it's played to the back of the 6-yard box. And then poked past the post by Roberts, and it's a goal kick. And now out to Godden on the right in the penalty area. Across the face of goal, and Gyökeres scores. That's game over. 89th minute. Gyökeres. Ekwa looking for the run of Bennett. Too easy for Hamer to get in front of him. That Bennett gets round him, gets a ball into the box, and then Danny Bart is up. It drops on the far side, and it's curled in. Ahmad's pulled one back. A trademark Ahmad finish. It's 2-1, and there's still 3 minutes. Coventry 2, Sunderland 1.
Keep them believing, really, that there's plenty good about what we're doing. I don't sit here and think, oh, we got beaten by a better team today, and we just have to accept it. And because I think with the games coming, we will win plenty of games if we perform to a level, but we have to add the clinical edge.
Tony Mowbray there, speaking after that defeat at Coventry. General thoughts, Marco? I mean, Sunderland had a whopping amount of possession, more than 70% possession, certainly more shots on target, passes. Good number of shots, nothing to show for it.
Amount of possession they had, you know, and I think it's almost like a theme at the moment that teams are happy to let Sunderland have it. You know, they just say, okay, you can have it and see if you can break us down. And that's very difficult to do at times. You know, we scored some fantastic goals this season, but the game, they were quite often in games that are a little bit more open, and, you know, that the opposition probably didn't know too much about what we got. I think our reputation is preceding us at the moment. And teams like Coventry are saying, well, you're not going to come here and just waltz round us in the final third. We're going to set up, we're going to be tight, and we know that we can hurt you on the break, because, you know, probably the simplest way to describe the game on Saturday was if their centre forward had been playing for us, we would have won, Nick. I think that would be the easiest way to have done it.
Yes, totally. I mean, Tony Mowbray pretty much made the point afterwards again. I think first time conceding now that Joe Gelhardt's not the answer. He's not a number 9. He's not a striker, and he's being asked to do something which I think again was proved on Saturday. That direct comparison between Gyökeres and Gelhardt, I think, was stark. I mean, Gyökeres was just a total handful. Strong, powerful. Look, 15 goals in the Championship this season, 5 assists. Very, very difficult to play against. And you're right. If Sunderland had someone of his ilk in the penalty area, it could have been a different story.
I mean, I do think Gelhardt has room for improvement. You know, he's got to do some of the things that centre forwards have to do better. You know, he's not going to smash through a gap in defence because he just hasn't got the physical presence to do that. But he's got to find when you're a build that he is, he's got to find pockets of space and holes. But also, we have got to give it to him quicker, Nick. You know, too often, you know, Roberts, Ahmad, you know, the little triangles that we're playing, if you've done it 2 or 3 times and you're not going anywhere, you've got to do something different. And I think that's one of the issues as we get into their final third, they get everybody behind the, you know, and by the time we've moved it round a few cycles, there's no space anywhere. So it's got to go quicker to him, and he's got to have the room or the space to be able to, like, you know, his first touch in behind the back four, and then the next second touch is a shot. You know, classic stuff like that. But I think what happens is we get bogged down in the final third at the moment. That's been a pattern of the last few games, and I think, you know, you saw Bennett come on, and at least he just, you know, going past somebody on the outside and putting a cross in is actually, it really works. And we haven't really got, you know, he's the only one, I think, who has that blinding pace to do that at times. And you know, we've got a few issues, and we've got to try and do something about it, because we're a really good team, and but you can get bogged down by teams doing exactly what Coventry did.
Is it, Barnsley, that this is a very good Sunderland team, but that only really has one way of playing?
Yes, to a degree. I mean, I think Tony Mowbray tried to put that positivity, that positive slant on it afterwards by saying, look, let's not forget, we are a good team, they're good to watch. And I agree with Marco. I think sometimes they just over-elaborate in that final third.
Too much.
And you know, they could just be a little bit more clinical around that area, get bodies in the box, as Tony Mowbray said, then they will get their rewards for that. But they do, I mean, Ahmad, Roberts, you know, as brilliant as they are, they do want to just sort of play
too much,
and it's causing them issues, if you like. I mean, Gelhardt, I think he works really hard. Too often, though, he seems to have his back to goal and then finds this.
He's got to get himself half-turned.
Yeah, and he's not at the moment. I mean, maybe game times, and it'll come with, now they've got time to, you know, train this week, because they've got next few weeks they haven't got.
He's a professional. He's a forward, though, Nick. These aren't things that he's got to learn. He should know.
Well, I think what Tony Mowbray's made the point is he's got to get him on the training pitch to get embedded into the team at the moment. At the moment he's playing game to game, and it's no chance for them to work on.
Well, they've got to get the ball to him.
The ball into him.
They've got to get the ball into his feet, because, you know, all right, he might not bustle and knock people over and you know, physical presence, but he can control it. You know, you cause people problems if you play it into him.
He has his moments. He has his moments.
No, look, he's no mug. We've not picked him out of the non-league, you know, second tier of non-league. He's owned by a Premier League team, but we've got to get the ball to him more. I mean, I'd have been poking my finger in one or two people's chest if I was playing centre forward on Saturday, because they've got to give the ball to him. Now, it's a two-way street. He's got to demand it, and they've got to give it to him. But you can't go through a game when it's like all played. The majority of the game was played around their 18-yard box, wasn't it? Really, you know, that's a fairly strong comment. And he really didn't hardly ever get the ball played into his feet to receive it and bring other people into the game. It bypassed him.
When we put the notes together for this section of the programme about Sunderland, the next thing you've written, as Barnsley, is referee, and then 3 question marks and 2 exclamation marks.
Times again.
I mean, where do you start? I mean, he was letting everything go. I mean, I think, as Tony Mowbray said afterwards, if only the referee had come to him and said, look, this is how I'm going to referee the game today, something could have gone in and been, you know, started kicking and pushing and shoving as much as Coventry were doing. But Coventry, you know, they're experienced. This is an experienced team. As soon as they got wind, at McFadden especially, I mean, I mentioned in that little clip when the first goal, McFadden basically nearly punched Mishu's lights out on the halfway line. Mishu goes down. The referee does nothing, absolutely nothing. We've watched again. It was a good tackle. Gelhardt blocked, but he wasn't strong enough. But I think initially from the halfway line, you know, the referee was letting that go all the time. Dan Neil then went to the referee to argue the point that he just wasn't giving any free kicks. Ends up with a yellow card for just having a chat with the referee. Yeah. So Dean Whitestone wasn't going to have any of it. He was just going to go through that game and just let it go. Well, fine. But I think, you know, it in one sense let the game flow, but in the other sense there was some challenges in there which should have been punished, and there should have been more free kicks. I think, I mean, you know, what do you do? I mean,
what do you do? I'll tell you what you do.
If you're a player, you get stuck in, I think.
You get stuck in. We've talked about this so many times over the years, Nick. You have got to gauge what the afternoon is going to be like. You've got, you know, Tony Mowbray, I played against him quite a few times. if he thought that he could get away with kicking you or hitting you in the back as he was coming through with a header, and the first couple of times you didn't get a free kick, he'd continue doing it, and if it was happening at the other end to his forwards, he'd copy what there was. You've got to react to it and look. Okay, we're not a team of kickers. That's the first point we've got to make. They're not a team of players who are going to go around causing problems, but you have got to sometimes react to the situation, and it's these little things that I suppose this is where inexperience becomes a big factor, because those players probably in a few years' time, if it happens to them, they will react differently and react better and get have a better outcome. But we're missing key people around them, and all the other little problems that we've got, and it's just a shame. I hope they can get back on track, because we deserve to. That was a frustrating afternoon, and we're getting done by the time wasting thing was huge again. Just all happening so much to us at the same in match after match.
Quite a few individuals, I guess, Barnsley, not really at the races on Saturday. One of them certainly, Ahmad.
I just thought from the minute one, right from the start, I said to Benno in the commentary, he just doesn't look right. He doesn't look himself. He looks completely out of sorts. And I asked Tony Mowbray afterwards whether he felt that was the case as well.
No, he's been told. I think we need Ahmed, and it's a fine balance for me not to. I need to keep him on board. I need to keep loving him. Really, I need to keep him going. He's an amazing footballer. He scored a great goal. It's but early on, yeah. And I'm shouting at him, and he's listen, they're all individuals. They're all human beings. That's what football is. You either shout at him, scream at him, effing blind at him, and you lose him and he doesn't want to play, or you encourage him and keep him going and tell him how amazing he is, and you get the best out of him. But that's the art of management in my mind, the ones you can shout at and really get annoyed with, and the ones who you have to be careful, because they've all got personalities, they've all got characters. Ahmed's an amazing footballer. We don't undoubtedly right up there with Roberts as good a footballer as he is in this league, but they need to turn up and bring their talent to each fixture.
Tony Mowbray doing battle with a very loud lawnmower in the background. What do you? I think that's a really interesting, honest, quite candid answer from Tony Mowbray, Marco. What do you make of it?
Well, I think he's honest, and he's I totally agree with a lot of the stuff he says. I think the biggest question is, would Ahmad and would Roberts get into many Premier League sides at the moment? I don't think they would, because they lack the physical attributes that you need to play at the highest level. Neither of them have outstanding pace. That's the main thing. And secondly, they don't really have a great deal of power. They're fantastic footballers. They have great balance. Their brains are at the right speed. But I think this is what would Ahmad get anywhere near that Man United team yesterday?
No, but actually, funnily enough, that's not really what I was getting at with Tony Mowbray, because my
but what I'm saying to you is, so it's a learning curve. We're in a massive. Yeah. This he's a young player who probably needs to play another 100 games like that before he has a chance of being a Premier League player, or
Well, you see, the other side of it there, the other side of that Premiership player is, and something that Tony Mowbray has spoken about this season, if you want to play for Manchester United as a team that are winning trophies or, at that level, you've got to mentally be at that level and want to. Now, Ahmad on Saturday mentally was not at it. And I think that's, that's something that Tony Mowbray is highlighting here, is that and mentally, I can't shout and bawl at him because he'll just get even further into his shell and feel he's being wronged. But if I put my arm around him and tell him he's the best player, he will fit and he will walk into that Manchester United team, then I'll get a performance out of him. But that, to me, betrays the fact, as what Marco's saying, he's not yet ready for that level.
Yeah, and that's the line, isn't it? And that is what man management's about, I suppose, between convincing a player that they are good enough and instilling that confidence in them without deluding them almost.
Yeah, I think look, it's a two. I was a kind of player who needed to be shouted at, I used to get shouted at just about every half time because Denny Smith knew that I was so stubborn that I'd go back out and try and prove him wrong in the second half. Now, so that's not. I don't think he's doing that because that's the only. That is how he. That's because he's obviously the kind of player whose lip will come out if someone shouts at him. That's why they were doing that. They're not doing it because that's. The book, the book of rules says that's how you coach a player. The issue we've got with Ahmad at the moment is he's probably our talisman. He's our leader. He's our player, our go-to player who's going to make things happen. But all the opposition know that as well now. So he's being, he is being targeted, and he is being. There's extra care being taken when he gets possession, or he's getting a little bit bumped off the ball more, or whatever. And then you can see it a little bit. You can see it in his face on Saturday where he was looking round a little bit lost at times. In that, he needed some help from the referee. He needed some help from his teammates.
But even early in the game, first few minutes, he was just careless. I mean, it was just. And I thought, well, where does that come from?
Well, but players do have games like that, Nick, where you get the first few things wrong. But again, but because we rely on him so heavily, because a lot of the game goes through him. Then it becomes, I think, is it weight on the shoulders thing? All these issues. Again, he's a young player who has only played. What's he played? He's played 40 first-team games, has he? He's played 20 odd before he come to the game to here, and most of them were subs appearances. He is a massively inexperienced player, and we're asking a lot of him. But we found ourselves in a situation that's nothing to do with him or Tony Mowbray in a way. We're short of a striker to take all that game needed on Saturday was they were happy to just let us have it, and we needed to turn them. We never turned. Did we turn them at all, Nick? Did we play one ball over the top? And well, maybe till Bennett came on. We didn't do enough to mix the game up. So it puts pressure on certain players if that's the case.
Dennis Serkin, want to ask you about him briefly? He wasn't in the squad. Do we know why?
Very quickly, he's not fully recovered from the concussion at Millwall. And so, I mean, I think we probably saw that at Rotherham on Tuesday night. Didn't have a great game, but he was basically left out for that reason.
And the other thing, and apologies because this might take a little bit of explaining, is sort of season ticket Premier Concourse news for next season. Barty.
Yes, but it's good news. I think a lot of people will welcome this. Sunderland have confirmed the Premier Concourse will reopen, as they say, on a seasonal basis for the 2023-24 season. I think that they mean for the season. I think that is what that phrase means. Current season ticket holders who were previously located in the Premier Concourse, and I know we've got several listeners who are in that situation, prior to its closure in 2016, will have a window of exclusivity to return to the concourse with blocks P1, 2, 3, 9, 12 and 13 reopening, and that will make sense to those holders of season cards in those blocks. Now, the priority period will be open from Monday, 6th of March at midday to Monday, March the 13th at 5 o'clock. Current season ticket holders who were previously housed in the Premier Concourse will be contacted via email to outline the next steps. So there's the club saying ensure that your email address is up to date within your e-ticketing account to ensure that you get the emails. Now, supporters wishing to remain in their existing seat and not return to the Premier Concourse, they won't have to take any further action. The Northwest Upper will remain closed, but should it reopen on a seasonal basis, there will be a priority period for supporters previously housed in the stand to relocate. So there will be one area, which at the moment, that area is the area just alongside where the away fans are. Now, the early bird 2023-24 season tickets are priced from £390 for adults and £48 for under 16s, with all other early bird renewals commencing from Monday 20th of March. Now, that's quite a lot to take in, but the main thing is that the Premier Concourse is reopening, and that, I think, will be seen as good news for a lot of supporters who've wished to go back up into their seats on the Premier Concourse.
Yeah, and
especially for you and Benno as well, a bit of company up there.
Well, we've got places to be out. Bizarrely, there are on a match day, the Premier Concourse is pretty full, but that's all, I think, staff, people from the football club, basically.
Yeah.
So we have not been without fans up in the Premier Concourse, but it's going to be reopening to fans who previously did hold tickets. I know we have one caller, Philip Scott, who had a seat just right at the front of it. I think he'll probably be calling and delighted with that news that he'll be able to go back to his seat.
Please do, Philip, if you're listening.
Yes, give us a call.
And anyone else, of course. And one more thing to mention before you go.
Congratulations, Chris Rigg and his England under-16 teammates. They've won the UEFA Development Tournament trophy. And Chris Rigg captained that England under-16 team in the mini-tournament in Cyprus.
Thank you very much, Barnesy. Nick Barnes, our Sunderland commentator, will presumably still be our Sunderland commentator tomorrow, to the best of all of our knowledge.
Now I go into the office, my desk has been cleared.
Hey. Actually, come back in and tell us, because that would count as news we would like to put out on Total Sport, but I'm sure you'll be fine. Nick Barnes, our Sunderland commentator, will be back on Total Sports tomorrow. Of course he will. The number to call, 0800 234 6565. Thank you for all your messages. People have started sending their messages in twice because they think they haven't got it the first time. I just haven't got around to reading any of them yet. 81333 for your text messages. 08000 321 333 for WhatsApp messages. Start them all with BBC, and we will talk to Colin, who is a Newcastle United supporter, in just a tick.
Everyone has a story to tell.
There's a lot more perks to having alopecia than I thought.
If you're aged 11 to 18, the BBC wants to hear from you.
Just because somebody's disabled doesn't mean that they can't achieve something.
So that your story can be told across TV, radio and online.
I really hope my story has helped people who are going through similar things.
Go to bbc.co.uk/young reporter competition to find out more and see the full rules and privacy notice.
You have a voice that matters.
Entry closes just before midnight on Friday the 31st of March 2023.
And this is Total Sport on BBC Radio Newcastle. Colin White in for Simon Pride tonight. Pride will be back tomorrow, joined by John Anderson, former Newcastle United fullback, and Marco Gabbiadini, the former Sunderland striker. And Colin, who is a Newcastle United supporter who was at Wembley at the weekend. Welcome to Total Sport, Colin.
Hi, Colin. It's been a while. Ando, Marco, hope you're both well.
Hello, mate. Good, thanks.
Welcome back, and tell us about your weekend.
First of all, it started on Friday at dinner time. We headed down. We got down at the capital. We were staying at a hotel at Wembley Way itself, which was great because we booked back in the beginning of December for our hotel rooms. I don't know why, I just had that feeling we were going, if I'm honest. Bigger story behind that, if I'm honest. But I had an amazing amount of confidence. Saturday morning, I've got to point out, I went to Heathrow Airport to collect a friend and his son, who I haven't seen for 17 years, and managed to organise getting them tickets, and they flew all the way from Melbourne, Australia, in a plane now heading on the way back home now. So that was amazing that they came that way. The whole thing, I don't think anybody at all ever let themselves down. I think from the supporters right the way through to the players, I think it was a tremendous weekend. I was there at the last cup finals, and I'm old enough for that now, which scares me a little bit. But overall, this was, I don't know why this felt different. This just felt awesome. Trafalgar Square was just electric. And I suppose if I was describing this weekend, it's just gone, I would describe it as a feel of an electric weekend. And I've got to point this out, and I'm not having a go whatsoever, any Man United fan. From us getting there Friday, we never seen a Man United fan with the colours on until Sunday about 1 o'clock. Anyway, and we travelled, we were all over London. I mean, we walked nearly 20 miles, on the Friday afternoon and all the Saturday and Sunday morning, and I have to say, Newcastle fans did really turn that city black and white. It was awesome. Even the police were brilliant towards us as well, Colin. The game itself, I'm not disappointed. They took their chances. The deflection, the second goal, I think, is a good chance. Karras would have had that. I don't think he disgraced himself. I think he done really well. I can't even pick a player out who was most outstanding. I think the player as well as they could on that day. It just wasn't to be. But there's no doubt, like every other fan, we're going back, and it'll be in the near future.
And it'll be interesting to see how it feels second time round when there isn't that kind of, I don't want to say novelty factor, but it is sort of that. I mean, it's almost a quarter of a century since people like Colin got to go and do that, and that's maybe why it's not the occasion for Manchester United.
The difference with 98 and 99 was you played sides that were double winners and treble winners. You know, they were exceptional sides, and if I'm perfectly honest, I think we went there this time round really thinking that we could beat Manchester United. You know, we didn't put them in the same category as the Arsenal side of 98 or that Manchester United side of 99.
Because they're not.
You know, and definitely not. So you thought there's an opportunity there for us, you know, and I know it's been a great weekend and everything about it, Colin, and one thing and another, but when you look back, you've then got to say it was an opportunity lost, because Manchester United, for me, aren't a great side. You know, I think if I'm perfectly honest, I think they got their tactics spot on. I said earlier that they did to us what we've been doing to sides all season. They packed two banks of four, let us have the ball, come at you, try and break us down if you can, and we'll break our numbers on you, and that's what they did. And it was efficient. You know, they did it well, but I think it was a big opportunity. And it was. Sorry, Colin, I was just going to say it's all about momentum going into cup finals. I think, and they had it, and unfortunately we haven't, because we haven't been scoring goals in recent weeks.
I think one quick thing, so I'm not going to stay on long, but I think as a fan, and a lot of fans may disagree, some may say yes. I think in some ways we're about 2 years ahead of where we'd expect, because I wasn't ever expecting to start the season to be at a cup final, and I wasn't expecting to sit where we are in the league. I think that expectation of where we were sitting in the league had us believing, and the fact that we drew 0-0 with Man United was 0-0, it was. Yeah. And we actually played very, very well that game. I think that's why we believed, but I get what you're saying. I think that Man United manager was brave when he got rid of Ronaldo, and he did. You know, the team did play well for them, but I couldn't be any more prouder than I've ever been as a Newcastle fan.
How many players do we need to get back there again?
Oh, John, how many times?
You're saying we're going back. How many do we need?
It's going to be a quick answer, Colin. Good luck.
I think 3 or 4.
3 or 4. There we are. 4 was a quick answer. Colin, thank you very much. It's exactly the kind of call I wanted tonight. Colin detailing his Wembley experience for us. Come on and do the same, please. 0800 234 6565 will be the number to call. It has just gone 7 o'clock.
On the BBC Sounds app, on your smart speaker,
play BBC Radio Newcastle,
and on your radio.
The sound of the North East is BBC Radio Newcastle.
And here with your latest BBC News headlines is Michael Hamilton.
Thanks, Colin. Good evening. Our gas and electricity bills are set to rise by about 20% from April, despite the energy regulator Ofgem reducing its price cap by the equivalent of about £1,000 a year. The government says it can't afford to continue subsidies for households at the same level it's done since Christmas. The Consumer Finance campaigner Martin Lewis is hopeful, though, that ministers might still change their mind.
I do not know it will cancel that rise, but I'm more hopeful than I was after some Rune reading. I think there is a better than 50% chance that it will cancel that rise.
In other news, a teenage boy has appeared in court charged with murdering Holly Newton, the 15-year-old who was stabbed to death in Hexham a month ago. The 16-year-old boy, who we are not allowed to name for legal reasons, appeared in court via video link, charged with murder, attempted murder and having a knife. No pleas were entered and he's due back in court in May ahead of a trial in July. Hundreds of people had worn purple in Holly's memory for her funeral 10 days ago.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
Rishi Sunak and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, have spoken of a decisive breakthrough and the beginning of a new chapter after finalising a new agreement on post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. Under the deal, there will be a green lane for goods transported from Great Britain across the Irish Sea if they are staying in Northern Ireland. Stormont Assembly will also be able to reject new EU laws, but the European Court of Justice will continue to have the final say when there are disputes. The leader of the Democratic Unionists, Geoffrey Donaldson, says his party is yet to decide if the agreement is acceptable.
We need to look at the legal text. We need to get legal advice on that. We need to make our own assessments and come to a considered view on this. I hope that we can do that within a reasonable time frame. But let's face it, it has taken months to get to this point, and we will not be rushed, will not be pushed into a hasty decision. We want to make the right decision.
Bomb disposal experts have safely disposed a suspected unexploded device in Rothbury. It was found around midday at a building site on Townfoot. Northumbria Police says an area of the town was cordoned off while it was dealt with. Former Newcastle United and England footballer John Barnes has been given more time to clear a tax debt. It's after a court in London heard the 59-year-old had owed at least £200,000. HM Revenue and Customs told the judge he'd repaid about half of that amount, and the case has been adjourned to allow settlement negotiations to take place. Finally, for now, tributes have been paid to Betty Boothroyd, the first female Speaker of the House of Commons, who's died at the age of 93. The former Foreign Secretary Lord Hague said she was kind, fun, fair and forthright. The current Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, said she was a national institution.
She brought humour, she was strong, and she ran it, with a rod of fear for people if they crossed her, because she was doing it for the right reason. And of course, as we know, she took no prisoners. She'd even take the press on, She was that kind of Speaker who said, this is how it's going to be done, and did it that way.
Sir Lindsay Hoyle paying tribute to the first female Speaker of the House of Commons, Betty Boothroyd, who's died aged 93. BBC Radio Newcastle News, I'm Michael Hamilton. For an update anytime, ask your smart speaker to play BBC News for the North East.
Thank you, Michael.
Total Sport.
Fantastic result, and the team as a whole put in a massive shift.
Felt very comprehensive. It felt like we hoped to find a little bit of a corner.
Not to give the penalty, how were they getting that so wrong?
That's a team there, when you look at it on paper, should be able to bring the 3 points home. That's all we're interested in.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
The Wembley post-mortem will continue into the second hour of Total Sport tonight. We are going to talk Sunderland as well, of course, in the next 55 minutes. We've already heard from Colin, a Newcastle fan who was reflecting on yesterday's League Cup final defeat.
I don't think anybody at all ever let themselves down. I think from the supporters right the way through to the players.
Let us know what your Wembley experience was like across the weekend as well. 0800 234 6565. Sunderland wise, I told Philip to call and he called us, so he's going to talk to us about moving to the Premier Concourse. We'll get his thoughts and your thoughts on the defeat at Coventry at the weekend as well. The number to send your text messages to is 81333. Your WhatsApp messages come to 08000 321 333. We'll bring you the sport headlines later on as well. We'll round up the rest of the local sporting action, including a 5th win in a row for Berwick Rangers, the mighty Berwick Rangers in Scotland's Lowland League. We also need something to hoy in the river and a performance of the weekend. I suspect no nominees will come from either Newcastle United or Sunderland. You never know, you might want to nominate Loris Karius. He didn't have too bad a weekend in the end. The number to call 0800 234 6565.
Total Sport.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
In fact, we're going to speak to Philip, who is a Sunderland supporter who I mentioned earlier on the programme, in a couple of minutes. Just want to read some of these literally tens, almost hundreds of text messages that we have got. So I'll try and pick some that are reflective of others as well, rather than read every single one out. Apologies if I don't read yours specifically. On Newcastle first, Ando Lee from Durham says, evening all, disappointed with the result on Sunday, but was expecting it to be honest. Was expecting it to be honest with our performances since the World Cup. I think maybe it's time Eddie played our wingers on the correct sides and go for good old crosses into the box. Inverted works with good wingers, but we struggle as Almiron has no right foot. I mean, I shouted at him a couple of times. I'm not a Newcastle fan, but he was annoying me yesterday by just not using that weaker foot. And then he did have a bit of a swing at one point, and
flew over, didn't he?
That explained why he didn't use it very often. And a couple of people mentioning the opening goal as well. Mick from Percy says, hi, definitely offside. That VAR spoils the game more times out of 10. Get rid of it. VAR said it was onside. And it was very, very tight, and the angles that
it was, I think Veghorst was offside.
Yeah, Veghorst was, yes.
Yeah. I'm not too sure Casemiro was, but we should have defended it better anyway. I mean, people have their views on it. I think the majority of Newcastle fans will say that it was offside. As I say, Veghorst was definitely in an offside position, and from a free kick like that, you would say that he's interfering with play, or he should be. But
yes, yeah,
we just don't know the rules anymore, do we?
And Paul in Wallsend, I wanted to hear your Wembley experiences. He said, I had to slum it in Club Wembley, so I was outside the main Newcastle section, but the waving flags while Local Hero played was incredibly emotional. Thanks for the great output all weekend. Matt's show on Wembley Way was a great listen to. Lads gave it everything, but not enough. We'll be back. Cheers, Paul, and thank you for the compliments as well, Paul. And on Sunderland, David from Durham says, I've been saying it for weeks now, and I remember David messaging this, you can't play Dan Neil and Edouard Michut together in midfield. Get Luke O'Nien in there. We're being bullied every week. Is Luke O'Nien playing in midfield part of the solution to the problem we talked about at the start of the programme about maybe not quite having enough physical presence in the middle of the park? Mark?
Yeah, there's a few things going on. You can understand why he wants to play Michut and Neil. They're both really, cracking footballers. They're really good on the ball, but they also do sometimes get caught on the ball as well because of the how sort of a little bit more physical, a bit more harum scarum in the middle of a championship game than it is in a Premier League game. But he just doesn't seem to see Luke O'Nien as a midfielder. Obviously we've seen a lot of the lad more than Tony Mowbray has over the last few years, and we know what the attributes that he's got. But yeah, I think when you look at the team as a whole, and you look at how pragmatic a manager, the Coventry manager is, the way that he sets up his teams. He wants them to be, he wants to have a bit of friction. He wants to have a little bit of a rough and tumble. You sometimes do need a player like that in the middle of the park.
Yeah, keep your messages coming in. 81333 if it's a text message, 08000 321 333 if it's a WhatsApp message. Start them all with the letters BBC. And just quickly, Paul in Canada says, I've always wondered why BBC Radio Newcastle listeners have to start messages with BBC, while other regional radio stations have more specific first word requirements, e.g. Tees or London, etc. Was BBC Radio Newcastle the first to set up text messages into the shows or something? I hope you can clear this up, Colin. Cheers. Paul in Canada. Well, thank you for your text message. That's the good news. We got yours. The bad news is I have absolutely no idea, but it's nice and easy. It's really easy for us. What happens, of course, is that people who are trying to message BBC Radio Tees, they have to put Tees, not BBC, so sometimes they accidentally put BBC Tees, and of course we get it and they don't, and whichever poor soul is presenting on Radio Tees is none the wiser that people have been trying to get in touch with them. But it's nice and easy. Yeah, start all your messages with the letters BBC and put your name on the end of them as well. And just before we talk to Philip, I love this message. This is Luke from Whitley Bay. I had a brilliant weekend altogether. The result was a bummer, but personally I think we were punching above our weight to get there in the first place, and I'm so proud of the lads. Look, thank you for sending us your message in tonight. I want to hear people's Wembley experiences, which clearly are tempered by not winning the match, but I'm sure there are still plenty of people who enjoyed their weekends as well. I asked Philip to phone, and he has. Welcome to the programme, Philip.
Good evening, lads. Yeah, thanks for giving us the invite to come on.
Cajoling you, yes. Putting you under pressure. Well, actually, let's start. The reason, just for people who missed the first part of the programme, it's in response to the news that the Premier Concourse is going to be open next season, or at least chunks of it, for season ticket holders. You used to be there. Would you move back?
And I loved it. Prime seat in the ground, right in the halfway line. And right behind the director's box, I saw everybody who come and go, all the people you see. But the problem I've got is that was 6 years ago, or 7 years ago will be by the time it opens, and I'm 7 years older, so walking up those steps is going to be very difficult. However,
you're hoping that 7 years they've been building an elevator, aren't you?
Yeah, that's why. That was Bob Murray's plan, but it didn't come to fruition actually. No. But more to the point, and I put this in a message to you tonight, Colin, but personally I think Sunderland's season has just faded away. 1 point out of the last possible 9 just isn't good enough. And, we did look as though we're going to be competing to get in the top 6. I don't think that's going to happen now, to be honest. I wish it could, but, for the reason you've given earlier on the show here, the lad we got from Leeds just isn't that kind of player we need.
It's not his fault.
No.
But I'm going to a meeting on Thursday, the supporters meeting, and Mr. Speakman is going to be there, I gather. So I'll be expecting to hear what the plan is for the future. You know, because it's quite evident to me and others, the plan we've got at the minute won't get us out of this league. I'm sorry.
Not for a while, yeah.
Not for a while, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be big and, you know, like that Coventry centre forward, I mean, to me, he's the best in the league by far. I know Stewart's done very well, but this Coventry lad's really good. If you remember the first game of our season at home, we drew 1-1 each with Coventry, and he scored a cracking goal from about 25 yards. And honestly, it never left the grass, you know, it was hard and low. What a shot it was. He's just good. And he'll be in the Premier League next season, I think, for somebody.
What do you want to hear from Christian Speakman then?
I want to hear that we're going to buy seasoned professionals, not kids, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old, and developing them with the thought of trying to sell them, which is a great idea, but it's not going to work. I don't think it works. I'm sorry. I mean, Armand's our talisman, as you described him earlier there, but he's not our player. You know...
If, and I know it's a big if, and in some ways it's a pointless question, but if Ross Stewart were fit and if Corey Evans were fit, would you still be saying the same thing, do you think?
Not as much. Not as much, because I do like those two players. I mean, Evans is a big miss, I think. I know Stewart is as well, because of his goals, etc. But Evans is an underrated player. I like him. You know, in that the midfield, he really gets it working.
Yeah.
But Marco, what were you about to say?
Yeah, Philip, I was just going to say, I think going back to your earlier point, though, Philip, is of when we get out of this league. The point is, the teams who are going to get out of this league in the next 3 or 4 years, and this year included, you know, they have another Corey Evans and another Stewart in reserve. You know, Sheffield United, they've got 3 or 4 centre forwards who can do a different job at a different time, or when one of them's out off colour, the other one comes in. That is the issue: is that we're doing it on a budget. We're doing it. You know, we actually this is a really good team. And I think this is and I said this months ago, that the frustration is going to be is we've got a really good team who actually play for each other. They're all really good. They have good attitude. They've got a strong mentality. But we're going to be undone by the fact that we haven't got strength in depth, or that we didn't, think this year could be the year. Let's go and get another centre. I don't know. We could have brought somebody from a lower division who'd scored a few goals, cost a few quid, or took somebody from one of their other resources, which is either bringing from Europe or the Premier League a young striker who was an international or whatever. Now I know we've got one in Gellert, but we needed more. We needed more than we got.
Yeah.
And even if Ross Stewart was fit, I still thought we should have had 2 more coming in.
Yeah.
That was, and we're sort of. It's going to be frustrating because we were very close to putting ourselves in a strong position, and it might not happen again for another 3 or 4 years' time. And I think that's going to be the issue. You look at all the teams in this league, who are all the Middlesbroughs and the Norwich and the sort of teams who've sort of got their seasons back on track, and they're all pushing into the final final quarter of the season, and they've got stronger, strength in depth in their squads than we have. And we're going to face that same problem year after year after year.
Absolutely, yeah.
Philip, we are going to have to move on. Sorry?
About Ross Stewart, he's had 2 injuries this season, and there weren't contact injuries, were there?
No.
That's a little concerning to me, actually.
Yeah, so he's still got a bit of a way to come back from this current one as well, and then we'll see how long it takes to get up to speed beyond that as well. Philip, thank you very much, sir.
Cheers,
to cut you off a bit, but Philip, thank you for giving us a call tonight. The number, if you want to do the same, 0800 234 6565. Brian has told us, he sent us a message. I had a great time at Wembley, flew in from Singapore for the game. Dear. Now on the train to Newcastle for the week, and he signed his text Brian from Singapore. So thank you for that message, Brian, as well. We're going to hear from a few other people. Dom went and spoke to quite a few people outside Wembley just after the final whistle, or actually it was a good long time after the final whistle, if it wasn't it? A lot of people stayed in the ground for quite a while. We'll hear from them in just a minute. But a couple of messages, Ando, that are on the same sort of theme, looking a little bit beyond yesterday. Howard in North Shield says, one for John, we've done great this season, far exceeded expectations, but the question now is, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
For me to improve the team, we must sign Maddison or players of his quality. And Simon on WhatsApp says, I'm gutted for Dan Burn. I feel as though his position will be one that is replaced in the summer. As much as I love him, I feel like our overlap is weak on the left compared to the right.
Yeah, look, as well as players have done, and everybody has done remarkably well this season to get us into the position that we've been in. But if you want to move forward, you can't show sentiment. You know, there can't be sentiment. Yeah, I keep harping back to when Kevin and David Kelly, Ned scored a mountain load of goals, but you know, he said, look, thanks very much for what you've done, but we're moving on, and we need something that's going to give us something that's a little bit different and a little bit better. And these are big decisions. You know, these are decisions that managers have to make. You've got to be ruthless, you know, because at the end of the day, if you don't make these decisions, your job's on the line as well. Yeah. You know, it's no good being Mr. Nice Guy and saying, oh, well, he's done well for us, and you know. And
he's
Dan,
a local lad. It's great. It's a great story, but it doesn't.
And Dan Burns done brilliant at left back. Yeah. He's done absolutely fabulous. But I've never seen Dan Burn as a long-term left back, you know. And I have to admit, it's worked well for a longer period than I thought it would do as well. Yeah. You know, and there's one or two others in there. After yesterday, you look at it and you go, well, there's deficiencies there, and in big games like that, they get shown up, and that's where we need strengthening, and you need to do that. I mean, I think the summer's going to be huge for us. I think it's going to be a really interesting summer as well, because with everything that's going on with Manchester City at this moment in time, with financial fair play and everything else, it's going to be really interesting to see how much money is actually available. Yes, you know, so yeah, lots to happen, but there's still an awful lot of football to be played this season. You know, we got to Manchester City this weekend. They're chasing the league title. Do you go there with a hangover? You know, it's a difficult one to get over. Of course, it is losing a cup final. But plenty of games to be played. Still an awful lot of football to be played. Spurs won at the weekend. Yeah. Go 5 points clear. Yeah, I know we've got 2 games in hand, but, you know, that's what it is. But we've got to, it's
only 4 points.
There's a lot of head scratching to be done. Sure.
Yeah. It's only 4 points, by the way. Don't panic.
4 points. Sorry. What did
Newcastle,
I say?
You said 5.
But I said 4 points.
Newcastle's got 2 games in hand.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said 2 games in hand.
Don't panic.
I did say 2 games in hand. You did. I didn't say 5 games in hand. I said 2 games in hand.
0800 234 6565 is the number to call. You're listening to Total Sport on BBC Radio Newcastle. I'm Colin White, in for Simon Pride tonight, joined by John Anderson and Marco Gabbiadini. It is 22 minutes past 7.
Good morning, Alan.
Good morning.
Matt Bailey at breakfast.
You flew in from Canada, didn't you?
I flew in from Vancouver. I thought the game was excellent. I thought it was a really entertaining game, and I thought Newcastle held a good account of themselves. Thought they did very well. The way Newcastle had gone within the last year to go from being bottom of the league to being where they are now is a credit to the owners and to the club and to Eddie Howe and his staff and the players themselves for buying into it, and the plan they've got, whether it's a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. I think they're ahead of the game. I think the only way is up. They're going to get better and better and stronger and stronger. I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with, no doubt about that.
The sound of the North East at breakfast.
Don't forget, on Friday we'll be giving away tickets to see Sunderland versus Stoke City at the Stadium of Light.
BBC Radio Newcastle, making a difference in the North East.
Message in from the Halftime Boys. We've had our first nomination for What Gets Hoyed in the River. We need a Hoy in the River nomination. We need a Performance of the Weekend nomination as well. The Halftime Boys saying, I would like to Hoy in the River every pundit who insisted on calling Manchester United United and Newcastle United Newcastle. Clearly unacceptable when there were 2 Uniteds playing. There we are. We've got one.
So, yeah, it's a touchy subject, isn't it?
It is, and I get it. I completely understand it. But yes, it is among quite a few Newcastle United supporters. To send us a message, if it's a standard text message, then 81333. If it's a WhatsApp message, the number is 08000 321 333. Start them all with the letters BBC.
The one thing I would say is that we've been united an awful longer than they have.
Yes. That is true. I can't put a figure on the difference, but yeah, Newcastle, obviously Manchester United weren't always called Manchester United, which is the point you were making. Yeah. So, somebody can work it out how long Newcastle United have been united when Manchester United weren't. Now, we've already given plenty mention, of course, to the extraordinary atmosphere that Newcastle United supporters created inside and around Wembley yesterday. Dom James spoke to these fans outside the ground after the game.
Not the first time I've come and watched for lose 2-0 at Wembley, and hopefully it'll be the last. Hopefully it'll be the last time I see them lose here. I want to see them win here next time. We'll be back. And we're going to be back. We're going to be back before long.
You know what it is, mate? I think we didn't disgrace ourselves. I thought they had 2 chances and scored. We didn't create anything. But it's one of them, mate. It's the first of many. If somebody had said to us at the end of last season, you'll be in a cup final in February and you'll be in the top 5, every single person in that ground would have snapped the hand off.
It's good to be here, but you want to win it, you know what I mean? You didn't come to just be a spectator. You want to win it, and I just felt like the day was just too short. I think a couple of signings in January might have pushed one. Man, you played 3 days ago, and I feel like they just had the legs towards the end. With possession does do you good, but we didn't have any shots. Their keeper had maybe 1 shot to save the whole match. It's not good enough for a final, that's our thing.
I'm just absolutely buzzing to be here. I've dreamt about this my whole life. Just wish we won it. Proud of the lads, and I'm glad to be here.
Gutted listening to all these singing their songs, but we didn't take our chances, and that's the end of it, really, isn't it? All weekend's been fantastic. The fans have done the city proud. We've done what best we can. We'll just come another time and have another go.
If we played rubbish and we got beat, fair enough, but we didn't. We deserved more, but we couldn't manage it. Maxi was good, but somebody else. I mean, Murphy came on, he played really well, and he was just trying to change it, and I've got no qualms about that. Can I tell you a story about me? I'm 67 years old. I was born in 1955. Newcastle were holders of the FA Cup. They won the Cup 3 times in the 50s until I came along, and they've won nothing in my lifetime apart from the first Cup, nothing domestically. And I'm praying to win one of these Cups one day, and I'm extremely disappointed. This is just the start. I just want to live long enough to see it come to fruition, and I'm sure I will.
Yes, we could have done our job better. Certain aspects definitely could have went our way a bit more, but, you know, the lads made it to the final. As a Newcastle fan, what more do you want? You know, you look at the takeover coming in kind of my eyes of it, we're ahead of schedule. We were here too early. It did a little bit show there, and I think the only thing else we can do is keep going, develop, and eventually be that team that all Newcastle fans want.
It is a lot. Lots of people have talked about it being the first step, or one of the first steps on a very long journey.
You can never say it's too early. If an opportunity comes to get to play in a cup final, you take it. You know, we spoke about, and Marco will back us up on this. We spoke about last week and the week before about the Sunderland fans saying, "Oh, it's too early." It's never too early. If the opportunity is there, you've got to go and you've got to grab it. And it was great being in a final, but to lose a final, it's.
In fact, you were probably about 10 weeks too late, actually, John.
Yeah, exactly. You're dead right, Marco. If this had been 8, 10, 12 weeks ago, I just said we'll beat Manchester United.
Yeah,
we will beat Manchester United, and I just think that we've hit a little bit of a wall. I think, and I've said this on here before, I think since the World Cup, I think sides have looked at us, sussed us out a little bit, and I think Manchester United did their homework yesterday. As I said, in my opinion, they did to us what we've been doing to sides all season.
Yeah.
They defended well, Casemiro in the middle of the park just kept getting little pokes in at things, just kept pushing the ball away.
He won the battle that we talked about on Friday night, really, didn't he?
I thought he did. He obviously got the goal, but he kept breaking it up. I thought the back four, I thought Shaw was excellent. I thought the two centre-backs did exactly what they had to do. You know, he did his homework and he got his tactics spot on, you know, and we didn't have enough to be able to break them down.
Yeah. 10 years is the difference between a Newcastle United being called the Newcastle United and Manchester United being called Manchester United.
Told you we were United before them.
Correct. Absolutely right, yes. 1902 Manchester United came into existence with that name. Give us a call tonight, 0800 234 6565. Mike is a Newcastle United supporter who joins us on the line now. Welcome to Total Sport, Mike.
Thanks very much.
Hey,
now,
Mike.
You were at Wembley at the weekend. Tell us your story.
Well, my story is that I'm 73 years old. I remember my first game in 1961, 5-0, beat Fulham, third round of the FA Cup. Ivor Alchurch scored. I have two daughters. One of them was born the day after the 74 final. And my second daughter was born in the day after the League Cup final in 76. So I went to all
You're not having another one tomorrow, are you?
God forbid, I wish I had a third one. So it was fortuitous that tickets came to us, you know, two people who couldn't go. And suddenly we had tickets last Tuesday. And I went with my son-in-law. And just the whole occasion. We went on a train. God forbid, it was one of these chartered trains, and it was like a Harry Potter Express. Express it wasn't. 5 3/4 hours to get.
Oh dear.
But and the way back and the crack, and I don't know about the dry train, but never mind, we'll bypass it. Wonderful. And I tell you something. That first, before the match started, the sea of black and white, it lived in my memory a long time.
Oh, it was brilliant, yeah.
And we will be back. And, you know, I thought they played well.
Yeah.
I thought the difference was the incisiveness.
Yeah.
You know, they took their goals and were never really, you know, Maxi, Byrne, but it wasn't clear cut, was it? And Casemiro, is he?
Yeah.
Class. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
Do you not think? The class difference between...
Yeah.
But am I proud? Yeah.
and did you enjoy it? Can you come back and say you enjoyed it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? It wasn't on my bucket list because I never thought it could ever happen.
Yeah.
And now it's been on my bucket list. It is. And you know what? The occasion was just fantastic. Proud of them, proud of the city, proud of the fans, proud of the team, you know, and I think it'll be the start. You know, somebody said a few moments ago, I hope I live. Well, he's a bit younger than me. And I honestly had a conversation in the toilet with two guys, and one of them said, oh, you'll have another 10 years. Oh, 20 years. And the other lad said, no, come on now, 10. You'll have another 10. So, God,
and thank you for telling us that, Mike.
Brilliant.
And
Cheers, Mike.
When Mike talks about the flag display beforehand, and obviously I'm watching it here from a distance, you were there, Ando, and the incredible emotion in the first time it happened, which was before kickoff, but also just a couple of minutes from the end, and it's sort of it's almost an act of defiance, but it's an extraordinary act, an extraordinary vision for you to be able to see and for fans to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, before the game, it was brilliant. You know, I mean, what they did was unbelievable. But you're 2-0 down with a couple of minutes to go in a cup final, and then to do what they did as well was just. It was a magnificent sight. It was. You had to be there, really, I suppose, to really appreciate it and feel the atmosphere of it all. And it was first class. It really was. I mean, I have to say, everything about the weekend apart from the result, was first class, and the crack, some of the crack, some of the wit that was coming out was, we got the train down on Saturday afternoon and we stood all the way down. You couldn't get a seat and the aisles were just full, and there was people just passing drink around all over the place. That wasn't a dry train, but but some of the wit and some of the crack that was coming out was brilliant, and it made the journey, and it made for the weekend. And look at a lot of people, as I said, a lot of people that you spoke to on the train, a lot of people on Wembley Way yesterday, majority of them didn't have tickets, and you're thinking, would I come all the way down here and stand outside Wembley and not be able to see it? And full credit. I mean, I actually hate to think or even contemplate trying to put a number on how many supporters were actually there. It's we had 32,000 tickets, but I bet you there was at least double that amount.
Well, there was a very rough police estimate that was around about 100,000, and that obviously wasn't actually counting people, but you were getting towards that level, and they were anticipating that kind of level. Yeah.
Everywhere you walked around London, you just seen black and white.
Yeah.
We arrived on Wembley Way yesterday at 11 o'clock, and it was just a sea of black and white. You never seen a red shirt.
Yeah.
Never seen a Manchester United fan.
And I think it goes back to a point we made earlier, where it's less of a novelty, it's less of a rarity, and therefore maybe just means a little bit less. Even if you are a proper Manchester United fan, for want of a better word, if you are somebody like Mike who's supported your team for 50, 60 years, you have had many more opportunities, and you've probably savoured more occasions like that.
It's a new generation of supporters as well. When you think the last time we were at a cup final, there's a new generation who've never seen that. I've never, so yeah.
Thank you, Mike. It was a slightly clumsy ending to the call, which is my fault. Mike, thank you very much for coming on and telling us your story tonight.
I like the one about the two daughters.
Yes, yeah. 0800 234 6565. We're wildly over time, but it's 25 to 8.
Total Sport. BBC Radio Newcastle.
Your headlines then tonight. The Newcastle United head coach Eddie Howe says he's proud of his players for their efforts in yesterday's League Cup final defeat to Manchester United. Captain Kieran Trippier has thanked supporters as well for the atmosphere they generated inside the ground. Sunderland's head coach Tony Mowbray says he has to keep the players believing after their defeat to Coventry in the Championship on Saturday. That's consecutive defeats for just the second time this season. The Black Cats down to 9th in the table. There is one game in the Championship tonight actually. Swansea host Rotherham at 8 o'clock. The head of Premier League VAR, Neil Swarbrick, is to stand down and retire from officiating at the end of the season. He has overseen the implementation of VAR since his on-field refereeing career ended in 2018. The former Spurs and Germany striker Jurgen Klinsmann has been appointed the new manager of South Korea. England's cricketers need 210 more runs to win the second test against New Zealand in Wellington. They eventually dismissed the home side for 483 in their second innings on day 4. In reply, Ben Stokes' side 48 for 1 in their second innings at the close of play. In Rugby League, Newcastle Thunder of the Championship have been drawn away to Stanningley of the Yorkshire Men's Alliance League 2 in the Challenge Cup third round. It's the second division of Step 5 in British Rugby League. That would be a bit of a shock if Stanningley turned Newcastle Thunder over. That tie to be played on either the 11th or the 12th of March. That's in the third round of the Challenge Cup, I should say. In tennis, Novak Djokovic has surpassed Steffi Graf's record for the longest time spent as world number 1 after entering a 378th week at the top of men's tennis rankings. Not consecutively, but it's still a heck of a long time. And 16-year-old Mia Brooks has made history by becoming Britain's first snowboard slopestyle world champion. She took gold at the snowboard freestyle and freeski world championships in Georgia to also become the youngest world champion in snowboarding history. If only she'd been from Tow Law, we could have nominated her for Performance of the Weekend. Somebody, and actually I say somebody, I'm going to unveil him. Simon Pride suggested that Cameron Norrie could be a Performance of the Weekend nomination because he won the Rio Open, beat Carlos Alcaraz in the final. He is a self-confessed Newcastle United fan. I don't think he meets the criteria. As far as I understood it, the criteria were it has to be an individual rather than a team, which is fair enough, and it's either somebody from the North East competing for a Northeast team or competing in the Northeast. So if somebody went to the Great North Run, for example, they are valid. If you're playing for Newcastle away, whatever. He doesn't fit any of those. He was playing in Brazil. He's not from the Northeast, so he's not. No, I'm not putting him on the list. There are some other good candidates, and we'll come to them in about 15-20 minutes' time. But get in touch with us as well if you've got nominations for Performance of the Weekend. I'm not worried how obscure it is. Let us know. 0800 234 6565 if you want to call us, or 08000 321 333 if you want to send us a WhatsApp message. 81333 if it's a text message. Start all of those messages with the letters BBC. I'm going to read a couple of Sunderland messages, and then we're going to hear a bit from Bob Moncur on the show. He was on the breakfast show this morning. But Paula is a Sunderland fan, Marco. He says, our lack of a striker was evident on Saturday. The rest of the Championship know how to slow us down, frustrate us, and then beat us. We need to keep our formation at the back, continue with our attacking style, and work on getting players into the box for crosses to score from. If we can do that and restore any lost confidence from the 2 defeats, I believe we do still have a chance of reaching the playoffs. That point that she makes about working on getting players into the box for crosses to score from makes sense on the surface. And yes, you could ask, I don't know, a Pritchard, as well as obviously Joe Gelhardt, a Pritchard or a Daniel or whoever it might be, to get into the box more often. And you could ask the likes of Ahmad and Patrick Roberts to put more conventional crosses into the box, but that would mean none of them doing what comes most naturally to them.
And also, they aren't natural crossers of the ball. They are manipulators of the ball. They want to play, they want to run in the box and maybe, cut it back for a side foot finish into the net. I don't think I think we scored. The goal came from a cross, but it wasn't the first. It didn't get sorted out by their defence, and it fell to Ahmad, and he finished it off well. But I just think we aren't naturally a team that crosses the ball now that we haven't got a centre forward who. But there's two different parts of crossing the ball. We used to do this a lot in the Premier League era, where we were so slow in our build-up that we used to get it out wide, but by the time we got it out wide, they had 2 banks of 4 or 4 and 5 in the box and along the edge of the box, and it never really came to anything because they had numbers back. And I think the difference that we've got with when Stewart plays is that you've got the option to get it in there because he's 6'3" and will attack the ball. The other way of doing it is that you've got to sometimes get round the back of teams and make them, teams hate it, defenders hate running back towards their own goal to defend. And at the moment, when it goes out wide, our players usually step back inside, and then that gives defenders the chance to face up, square up, and be looking at play. And I think it's a combination of changing it up in these situations, because we did the same things over and over again with the same outcome too much on Saturday, and against Rotherham as well, it has to be said.
Yeah, Paula, thank you for your message. 08000 321 333 if it's a WhatsApp message, 81333 if it's a text message. I said we're here from Bob Moncur. I just want to read this message first from Big Geordie from Kingston Park. He says, I was at Wembley with my son and grandson. It's the 7th time I've been to Wembley, still no win. So proud of the lads. Think we're crying out for another centre forward, though. As much as I love what Callum Wilson has done in the past since the World Cup, he's not been the same player. What does Ando think? I know we touched on this at the start of the programme, but you would agree with that assessment,
definitely,
wouldn't you?
Yeah. Since he's come back from the World Cup, I don't think he has been the same player. I mean, prior to the World Cup, he was excellent. I mean, I'm a big Wilson fan. I think he's a quality player, but his movement and his work in the channels and that hasn't been the same since coming back from that World Cup. And obviously the goals have dried up as well. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's what centre forwards are there for, to score goals.
Thank you for your message, Jory. And yeah, he was hoping the 8th time was a successful one. 7th, it's a long way to go. I know Sunderland fans up to last May had exactly the same scenario of a number of trips to Wembley without seeing a victory. But yeah, it's a long way to go, and it's just the excitement every time, the anticipation, the belief it's going to be this time.
We had another one before that, didn't we, for the the Papa John's, didn't we? We had two very close
but there was
together.
nobody there for that one.
In
terms of people going to Wembley to see Sunderland win, it was that length, roughly speaking, that kind of long period of time was similar. So after the events of yesterday, of course, Bob Moncur remains the last Newcastle United captain to lift a major trophy. He was on our breakfast show with Matt Bailey this morning, who put it to him that really it's an accolade he'd rather not have anymore.
Yeah, it's one I would like to get rid of, but sadly it wasn't to be. I think the atmosphere, you would have thought we had won because we all went to this big place called the box office, which is like 2,000 Newcastle United supporters before and after the game. I mean, that was absolutely electric. And goodness knows how much we would have celebrated over and above if we had won, because it was just everybody had a great day, great atmosphere. And as I say, apart from the game, we've had a great weekend.
Yeah, as you said, I mean, London was black and white. Trafalgar Square was full of Geordies on Saturday night. Wembley Way he barely saw a Man United fan yesterday. And then you say, the atmosphere inside the game. The fans did them proud, didn't they?
Oh yes, yeah, and I think at the very end of the game, we tried. The team worked hard enough. You can't complain about their effort. It was just it wasn't our day, and they got their goals kind of easy, and that set us back a little bit early on in the game. But after that, just at the last 10, 15 minutes, there was a display of black and white flags, which was absolutely magnificent, all around half of Wembley, and it was really quite emotional actually to see all the black and white flags flying, proudly flying, even though we had got beat or we were getting beat. That was just fantastic to see, and it was very emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, Bob, I mean, a lot of Newcastle fans getting in touch, and actually we had a few Sunderland fans saying, look, it was quite clear to see this is just the start of things for Newcastle, and that's kind of how it feels, isn't it?
Yes, I think, you asked me before the game, I think I said publicly that win the Carabao Cup would be great, but I look further forward ahead. I'm hoping that we can get into the top six, because I think if we could get into Europe, you can imagine we've came to Wembley and it's been fantastic, all the supporters following us. And if you imagine if we went to Europe somewhere across, all that squad would have been going all over Europe, which would be fantastic as well, because it'd be like a cup final every away game. So I'm kind of hoping, obviously, to get in, the team can actually pick itself up and get back in the top six, and hopefully we get into Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've enjoyed your weekend yourself, Bob, yeah?
I've had a fantastic weekend. I've got to say, and I'd like to say this, but the staff at Newcastle United have absolutely done us proud. All the corporate hospitality, it's been absolutely brilliant. And they've worked so hard. They've been working like a month non-stop, and it's just fantastic that they put the effort in, and they deserve a bit of credit for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Bob, look, it's lovely to speak to you. As I say, hopefully we might finally be able to shift you of that title of the last captain to lift a trophy for the team.
And they better hurry up, because I'm not getting any younger.
Bob Moncur there talking to Matt Bailey on the breakfast show this morning, and yes, still the last Newcastle United captain to lift a major trophy. Couple of Newcastle messages as well before we talk to Ian, who's a Sunderland supporter, who's given us a call. Graham the Barber in Sharmer says, I met Steve Howie at the services on the motorway today, talked about the result. We both thought the same, need to spend in the summer. Nice fella and a gent. Was it definitely Steve Howie you met? Nice fella and a gent, says Graham. So there we are. Not that Steve Howie will be listening tonight.
He didn't come back on the train, Steve.
Well, maybe it was then.
Yeah.
I was being facetious. I was joking that because he called him a nice fella and a gent, it couldn't possibly be Steve Howie, but that went right over your head, Ando, anyway.
I wasn't saying anything. I was being nice. I spent the weekend with Steve.
You did. You haven't said whether you enjoyed it with him, but you did.
Well, I came back early last night, so make your own mind up.
Peter in Prada says, we were amazing off the pitch all weekend. London was a sea of black and white. The game turned on a very dodgy free kick award when I thought that Tom Daly had replaced Marcus Rashford on the pitch. It's time to drop...
You're joking. It was a free kick.
It was a big flat.
Of course it was.
It was time to drop Maxi. Just not good enough. Our goal scoring form has deserted us recently, and it's worrying and needs to improve. Just a quick point on Sam Maximin, because he's one of those who I think fans either, I don't want to say love him or hate him, because I don't think anybody hates him, but fans either think he is the best player in the team and should play every week, or he's the first target of frustration if things aren't going well.
Well, I think players like him are always going to be like that, because on his day, he can win you games. He can do something that's a little bit special. He can pull something out of the bag. People go back to the Manchester City game where we drew 3-3, and he was phenomenal. And then people say against Liverpool he looked like he was back to his best, but he didn't get the room yesterday. Dalla kept him pretty quiet, but he picked up a book, and then they switched it. They took him off and they put Wan-Bissaka on, who just likes defending.
Yeah,
just likes defending. And he got close to him and he put tackles in. But that's what it is, on his day, unplayable, but he's going to have more of them off days than he's going to have those unplayable days.
Yeah. 0800 234 6565, the number to call if you want to get in touch. Have a chat with John Anderson, former Newcastle United defender, and Marco Gabbiadini, the former Sunderland striker. If we can't get you on tonight, because it is already 12 minutes to 8, we can definitely book you on and give you a nice early slot on tomorrow's programme. But we have got time to talk to Ian, who is a Sunderland supporter, who's on the line. Hello, Ian.
All right, lads. All right. Marco, listening to Tony Mowbray's interview after the game, I think he's come out and he's more or less said it's lack of strikers that's costing us games. It's the first time I've seen him sit downbeat when you listen to his interview. But I think the club, there's a man on before, we've got to fetch 2 or 3 strikers in. I think we're on season 1. We've got to, because I've been on before, it's like, you're talking the same old, but our teams has got us now. We can't play any other way. Our fans has got to realise it is what it is. Come next season, and I'd like to say I would, same as that lad said before, a season striker. It's all right, fetching young kids in to fetch on and sell on or whatever, but that's not going to be no good for the club.
And that's almost the thing, isn't it, Marco? That Ian says 2 or 3 strikers, and it sounds ridiculous. But if you're a team that plays 2, no, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying in some ways it sounds no club really should be in that position. If you're a club that plays with 2 up front regularly, then everybody, it's almost common knowledge you need 4 strikers in your squad. Now Sunderland don't necessarily do that, but you still need probably 3 to be comfortable, to mitigate for things like the injury that Ross Stewart had.
Yeah, and the other part is as well, the reason we're in this crisis is because one of our 3, or one of our 2, at the start, was on loan, so we didn't control. Yeah. We didn't control the situation, and look. When you listen to Christian Speakman, he speaks very well, and lots of the stuff that they've done has been fantastic. You only have to look at the likes of Sirkin and Alisi and Ballard. All these players are. You can see what the potential is, and you can see why they're excited and what the plan is. But at the same time, Sunderland fans want promotion. They want to be battling at the top of the Championship in the next few years, and this year we've probably maybe overachieved, you could say, in some respects, but at the same time we have paid money for these players, and there is a risk involved in that. Some of them aren't going to become the players that they think they are, but they don't, and you also got the other risk is that what happens if someone offers 3 million for Sirkin this summer, or 7 million? And I think there's some tests that are going to have to be passed yet that the Sunderland fans don't really know what the answer to those tests are, and we could be disappointed as fans. Look. It's a really difficult place, isn't it? Because I think
I don't want to criticise the club, man.
No, I think there's an integrity to what they're doing, but is it what football fans want? Which is, we want to get back to having. We've got 40,000 fans at a lot of our games this year. 40,000 fans.
I just think it was ridiculous. Like you said, I've come on before and said the start of the season where you've got 1 striker and a loanee. That was just unforgivable for me. But I think we
said the same.
Yeah. Well, I think we're a bit like Newcastle. I know great possession, the whole possession. But I was down Coventry, and Coventry just let us have the ball because we were doing nothing with it. Yeah. The same as Man U. Man U did the same with Newcastle. Yeah, have it. But you're playing in front of us. Yeah. That's fine.
You know what's going to be interesting the next few weeks? We've got to play some of the top teams coming up. The top 10 teams. And I think in some respects it might be a better game for us, that, because it will be, they will be probably not wanting to change their style. They'll want to stay on the front foot and maybe give us the game will be more open, which might suit the likes of Roberts and Ahmad and Clark. So that might be. I think the trouble when it's when teams make it attritional against us, when they make it a battle and they blockade us. That's when we struggle, and that's where we're missing the outlet of, how many times did Patterson clear the ball or boot the ball over the top of their defence and Stewart runs onto it. That just isn't happening anymore. We haven't got that option of just a ball over the top to open things up a little bit.
Ian, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this evening. Time is running away with us. We'll try and give you a bit longer the next time you come on. I've probably said that to Ian before, if I'm perfectly honest, but I will try. 0800 234 6565 will be the number to call tomorrow night as well. Graham the barber in Charmer, who thought he saw Steve Howie, is now giving all sorts of details about who he was with and what vehicle he was in and everything. Yeah. I'm not disputing. I was trying to make a joke about, you said he was a really nice guy, and that's why I said, was it actually Steve Howie? You did. I'm sure you did see Steve, and I'm only kidding. He is a very nice guy. Send your messages 08000 321 333 if it's a WhatsApp message, 81333 if it's a text message. It is coming up on 6 minutes to 8.
Great sport kicks off here.
Newcastle United.
A buoyant and bouncing St James's Park.
Sunderland.
What a season they're having.
Women's football.
Showcasing more women's football in the North East.
And Newcastle Falcons.
Try Newcastle!
Total Sport.
Discover our commentaries on BBC Radio Newcastle, the BBC Sounds or Sport app.
Great sport kicks off here.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
I'm going to come back to Newcastle Falcons in just a minute. Not in terms of results, not a successful weekend for them either. We'll do non-league football first, though. Gateshead dragged themselves out of the National League relegation zone with a 1-1 draw away at Maidstone, who are bottom of the National League table. 3 wins in a row now for Blythe Spartans in National League North. 1-0 away at AFC Telford on Saturday. Terrific little run of form they've put together for themselves. In the NPL Premier Division, South Shields just keep on going. 9 points clear now at the top with 2 games in hand after they won 1-0 away at Belper Town. It's a 3rd win in a month for Morpeth as well, who beat Nantwich by 2-1 in that same division. In the East Division, Hebburn consolidate 3rd position with a 2-0 win away at Carlton Town. At North Shields, a 3-0 win at home to Pontefract Collieries, and the man who scored 2 of those 3 goals is going to be one of our Performance of the Weekend nominations in just a minute. It defeats, though, for Dunstan away at Lincoln United. They were 1-0 up really early on as well, Dunstan. And Consett losing 3-0 at home to Long Eaton United. A 5th win on the bounce for Berwick Rangers in Scotland's Lowland League, who beat Rangers B by 3-0. Durham women, though, their FA Cup run came to an end. They were beaten 5-0 in the end by Manchester United. It was 1-0 at half-time, and then Manchester United really turned the screw in the second half. Top of the division above are Manchester United, just to put that into a little bit of context. In Rugby Union's Premiership, Saracens 29, Newcastle Falcons 23, the final score. Not really a reflection of the whole game. The Falcons went down to 14 men pretty early on. They were 29-13 down at half-time and actually won the second half 10-0, despite being a man short. Head coach Dave Walder spoke to BBC Radio Newcastle's Rugby Union commentator Ian Smith after the game.
Our attitude on the day was good. I think we had not the best training session earlier on in the week, which maybe reflected how we started the game, and we made life hard for ourselves. There were balls that we normally drop on that people were jumping out the way of, and we lacked a little bit of physicality in collision, which ultimately Sarri's based the whole game around momentum, and they're the best team in the league for a reason. And I think we probably had bodies in the right places to start with, but maybe weren't as physical as we needed to be. Found ourselves on the scoreboard down, found ourselves a man down, and then woke up and decided to put a line in the sand and go forward from there. And disappointing to find ourselves in that situation in the first place.
Indeed, losing by 6 points in the end, losing unfortunately by 56 points to 6 were Newcastle Thunder away at Featherstone in Rugby League's Championship at the weekend. Reminder, they've been drawn away to Stanningley in the 3rd round of the Challenge Cup. That draw was made tonight. And in the basketball, in the WBBL, because there were no men's action this weekend, 2 narrow defeats on the road. Newcastle Eagles losing 74-64 at Essex Rebels on Saturday, and then Durham Palatinates losing 59-56 at Caledonia Gladiators. We can claim some sort of success in that one because Chantal Handy, who is from Consett, playing for Caledonia Gladiators. But yeah, the Palatinates losing by 3 points in the WBBL yesterday. We've got a couple of minutes then. I'll read some of your messages in just a moment, but we need to determine a performance of the weekend and something to hoy in the river. Nobody's, and this is sort of out of politeness, I think, more than anything else. A couple of people mentioned throwing VAR in the river again, which is probably a recurring theme, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure we've necessarily got anything else to hoy in the river, particularly. Just totally out of the blue, there's a couple of newspapers on the desk in here, and I caught sight of a headline. It's nothing to do with us, nothing to do with North East football. I don't even know which paper it was, but Emma Raducanu withdrew with tonsillitis from tennis tournament in America, and there was a headline in the paper that was just on the other side of the desk that said, Emma caught up in Texas throat sore massacre, which I think is genuinely one of the worst headlines I have ever read. So that's getting hoyed. Nothing to do with us, I'm just hoying that in the river. Performance of the weekend then. Callum Larmouth scored 2 of those 3 goals for North Shields in their win. Liam Buchanan scored probably the pick of the goals for Berwick against Rangers B. Cameron Norrie, who does not qualify for this. Bobby... His real name's not Bobby, but everybody calls him Bobby. Dan Moore, the Hebburn player and manager, more manager than player in recent years, but scored and was man of the match in their win over Carlton Town.
Hold on, he's manager, he scored and he's man of the match?
Yes.
Did he take all the throw? That's what do they used to call him? Sport Billy, was it they used to call him? Takes all the corners, throws.
Took the goal kicks as well.
Yeah. He's got to have it, hasn't he?
That's it, yes.
I'm manager, so I'm taking it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a penalty. I just want to point that out. So yeah, Dan Moore, well, that was nice and easy. Gets Performance of the Weekend nomination. Yeah. And I'm glad we did it then, because it turns out we've only got about 30 seconds left of the programme. John, Marco, thank you very much indeed. As always, are you both willing to come back tomorrow?
I will be back. Yeah.
Good.
Cheers, Colin.
I'm glad you said that. Simon Pride will also be back tomorrow as well, but thank you to both of you for everything this evening. A reminder then of the contact details. Nick Roberts is up next after the news, but if you want to get in touch with us, the number to call tomorrow, as always, will be the same: 0800 234 6565. But if you want to send us an email in the meantime, you can do that anytime you like. bbcnewcastle@bbc.co.uk, and we'll be back at 6 o'clock tomorrow.
On the BBC Sounds app, on your smart speaker,
Play BBC Radio Newcastle.
and on your radio.
The sound of the North East is BBC Radio Newcastle.
BBC News at 8 o'clock. This is Stephen Davis. Rishi Sunak has announced that a new deal has been agreed between the UK and the EU on post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. The agreement, finalised today in Windsor, will alter the Northern Ireland Protocol by scrapping some of the paperwork currently required for goods arriving in Belfast from the rest of the UK. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has told the Commons his party would support the deal. The Prime Minister said the text took a long time to agree.
After weeks of negotiations today, we have made a decisive breakthrough. The Windsor Framework delivers free-flowing trade within the whole United Kingdom. It protects Northern Ireland's place in our union, and it safeguards sovereignty for the people of Northern Ireland. Yeah. By achieving all this, it preserves the delicate balance inherent in the Belfast Good Friday Agreement.
Well, the Democratic Unionists, who've been blocking the formation of a new government in Northern Ireland until issues with trade have been resolved, say they are yet to decide whether the new agreement is acceptable for them. The Food Minister, Mark Spencer, has been meeting supermarket bosses this evening to discuss the shortages of some fruit and vegetables. He says he wants to hear what they're doing to get the shelves stocked again and to avoid a repeat. Here, Sarah Breeton from the charity Edible Guernsey says growing your own fruit and veg has its advantages.
It can be cheaper, yes, definitely, but you've also then got it there right straight away. So if you want some chives to go into your meal just after you've finished it, or your salad, you can then literally just snip it off and pop it into your dish.
The energy regulator Ofgem is lowering price suppliers that can charge for gas and electricity from April. The price cap will drop by almost £1,000, but typical household energy bills are still set to rise, though, as government support for soaring bills is scaled back and a rebate scheme ends. The Met Office says there is a chance some areas of the UK will get to see the Northern Lights again tonight. Normally they're only visible in Scotland and the far north of England, but last night people across the country saw the night sky lit up. The astrophotographer Paul Howarth was out with his camera in the Cambridgeshire Fens.
About 9 o'clock, I had a message from someone saying they were up and extremely bright in Scotland, so I took my chances and nipped outside our village, set the camera up and was expecting something quite faint, sort of hugging the horizon, but it just filled the camera with reds and greens. Absolutely phenomenal.
And tributes have been paid to Betty Boothroyd, the first female Speaker of the House of Commons, who's died at the age of 93. The former Foreign Secretary Lord Haig described Lady Boothroyd as kind, fun, fair and forthright. And that's the BBC News. It's 3 minutes past 8.